Welcome to a Legendarium special about the mysterious island, Jules Verne's epic adventure. In the comments section, let me know whether or not you think that it would be worth reading Jules Verne's The Mysterious Island today. Jules Verne was born on February 8, 1828, in the city of Nantes, France. He grew up surrounded by ships, dreamed about what life would be like aboard them, and even tried to sneak aboard one once. His parents, however, insisted that he continue his education, and young Jules trained to become an attorney like his father. To the dismay of his parents, he became drawn to literature instead. Early in life, Jules Verne supported himself and his family as a stockbroker while trying to make his name as a writer. That did not happen until the early 1860s, when Verne met Pierre-Jules Hetzel, a publisher and magazine editor, who helped Verne to publish his first novel, 5 Weeks in a Balloon. This novel served as the beginning of the Voyages Extraordinaires, a series of books written by Verne and published by Hetzel. In writing this series, Verne became a founding father of science fiction and wrote some of literature's most famous adventure novels. They include classics like Journey to the Center of the Earth, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Around the World in 80 Days. In 1875, well into his career, Jules Verne published The Mysterious Island. Verne traveled to the United States on several occasions and became a great admirer of the country. Verne set the opening action of The Mysterious Island 10 years before the publishing of his 1875 novel, during the final days of the United States Civil War. The action opens in a Confederate prisoner of war camp, where several rebel officers plot to escape by balloon during a terrible storm. A group of United States prisoners, led by engineer Cyrus Harding, plan to steal the balloon and escape captivity. While they escape successfully, things go badly for the group after that. They are driven thousands of miles across land and sea by the raging tempest, until Captain Harding himself is flung from the balloon into the ocean by a terrible wind. While his companions arrive on land without their leader, they struggle to survive, making a poor meal of shellfish and building a crude shelter. Thankfully, they find his loyal dog Top, who leads them to Harding, lying unconscious on the beach. How did Harding and his dog safely arrive? They have no idea, and not enough time to think about it. When the reunited band returns to their camp on the coastline, they find that their fire, set with their only match, has gone out. The camp falls into despair save for Harding, who makes fire by taking apart 2 watches and focusing sunlight through the glass covers. From this little miracle of applied science, the castaways know they will not only survive, but thrive under Harding's leadership. Harding's authority comes in part from his being an engineer, the high priest of 19th century high technology. More than half the book covers the exploration of what the castaways dub Lincoln Island, discovering its bountiful resources, and mastering the environment. Marvels flow from the brilliant mind of Cyrus Harding and the work-hardened hands of his men. Do you want to know how to make bricks and pottery? Verne tells us how Harding and his men do so in detail. Would you like to know how to make iron from raw ore? Verne once again tells us how Harding's men do just this. Harding knows how to make and use potash, sulfuric acid, and other chemicals, and he shows the readers how to as well. Over the next year, the men recreate 19th century life down to the smallest detail on their island. They build a water-powered mill to make felt for clothing, build a house called Granite House, and a corral for wild sheep. Harding even builds a battery-powered telegraph line so men in the corral can communicate with Granite House easily. These might seem like digressions from the plot, but for Verne, The Mysterious Island served not only as an adventure story, but a means to educate his audience about the wonders transforming their world and to demystify them for the reading public. To be sure, the mysterious island is not wholly plausible. The castaways easily find whatever resources they happen to need, like huge amounts of coal that are easily mined and are not found on the volcanic islands of the South Pacific. Verne also did not allow himself to be hindered by reality when filling his island. He mingles plants and animals from Asia, Australia, and the Americas freely, despite the fact that they could not coexist in the same biome. The men find koalas, kangaroos, peccaries, jaguars, and orangutans together, and often hunt them. They also find birch and sugar maples growing alongside Australian eucalyptus, also unlikely. The more exotic, the better seems to be Verne's credo. Europeans discovered many new species each year around the world, and Verne wanted to show off them all. Some of Verne's ideas about science have not aged well. Harding warns that fossil fuels will be exhausted one day and that water can be broken down by electricity into hydrogen and oxygen and be used to power furnaces. Researchers have yet to achieve this, yet wise men never declare something impossible. Other speculations have been proven correct, like when Verne has Harding argue that the continents are not fixed in place but moved by tectonic activity. However, Harding also asserts that coral reefs and islands are seeds for new continents the Earth will make when the Earth grows cold, which has not been proven. This startling notion has not aged well. However, the action continues as the castaways chart their location, identify the island on a map, and build a ship in dry dock to explore nearby Tabor Island. There they find a man who survived for years named Tom Ayrton, who previously appeared as a villain in another Verne novel called In Search of the Castaways. Lord Glenarvan, captain of the Duncan, left Ayrton on the island to punish him for mutiny and piracy. Unlike the castaways, Ayrton became reduced to nakedness and primitivism, which Verne saw as the consequences of ignorance and laziness. There could not be a greater contrast between Ayrton and Harding's men. Ayrton, however, redeems himself. Grateful to his rescuers, he confesses his crimes and helps his new comrades with the hard work of keeping their little colony going. He must also help them defend the island when it comes under attack by pirates. Once again, the colonists receive help when the pirate ship suddenly blows up, leaving only a few survivors to battle on the island. And when one of the men is wounded in the ensuing battle, medical supplies mysteriously arrive to save his life. Finally, the castaways meet the man who helped them throughout their adventure, none other than Captain Nemo, the anti-hero of Verne's most famous novel, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. 4 years after Verne introduced Nemo, he finally gives his backstory. Verne has Nemo confess to Harding that he fled human society after he led his fellow Indians in a failed rebellion against British rule. He found freedom under the seas in his submarine, but now all his comrades have died, leaving him alone. So Nemo found something close to companionship by following the adventures of the castaways and helping them whenever they needed it. Following Nemo's final instructions, Harding's men bury Nemo in his submarine and sink it. For all Harding's triumphs, he cannot defeat death, nor can he defeat nature. Just as the castaways could not help being driven deep into the South Pacific by the storm, they can also not stop an active volcano which finally erupts. At last, Harding's ingenuity faces a test it cannot overcome, a reminder of man's ultimate vulnerability to nature. Yet before his death, Nemo sent out a secret message which brought a friendly ship to the area and finally brings the castaways home. But they leave knowing that they triumphed over nature as much as men could. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.